Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Tag1 Team Talks, the webinar series about emerging web technologies. I'm really excited about today's topic. We're going to be actually discussing the future of collaborative editing in WordPress and Gutenberg with YJS. Joining me today are two of my dear colleagues, Kevin Jans in Berlin, Germany. Kevin is the founder and project lead of YJS and the real-time collaboration systems lead at Tag1 Consulting. We're also joined today by my dear friend Michael Myers, Managing Director of Tag1. And my name, of course, is Preston So. I'm your host of Tag1 Team Talks. I'm Editor-in-Chief at Tag1. I'm also Senior Director of Product Strategy at Oracle. And I'm also the author of Decoupled Drupal in Practice. Today's topic is going to be really interesting to pretty much every segment of our audience and everyone who works with a CMS on a daily basis, whether you're a developer or a content editor or a marketing team member. A lot of these ideas are very important to the future of collaborative editing, and I want to talk today about exactly how YJS is enabling collaborative editing and shared editing in Gutenberg in a peer-to-peer fashion. So joining us today is Kevin and Michael to talk about this. But first, let's just take a bit of a detour. Michael, why are we interested in this topic, and why is Tag1 invested in this topic?
This is a really exciting opportunity. You know, WordPress in particular is the most popular CMS that's out there. Gutenberg has, been a major advancement in the platform in addressing content creation, which is, one of the primary things that you do with a CMS. And so this is, to be able to make it collaborative, which is what we're going to talk about today, to facilitate teams to work together to create content, is what people need to do. And it's really technically challenging. It's really hard to make that happen. And the YJS framework takes away all of that complexity and makes it super easy to implement. So we're really excited to get this framework out there and show the potential of what it can do, not just for CMS systems, but to make any of your applications collaborative. So if you want to get on the collaboration bandwagon, reach out to Tag1 or Kevin and let us know how we can help you make that happen.
Wonderful. And just to kick things off here, let's take a big picture perspective on this and zoom all the way back out to the high-level reasons why we're concerned about collaboration in the first place. We know that CMSs like WordPress and Drupal, they've been around for a long time, more, 2 decades in both cases almost. What exactly is the reason? What's the motivation why we need collaboration in CMSs like WordPress and Drupal?
Yeah, so I think CMSs like WordPress and Drupal, they are really good at content creation, right? That's what they are built for, to publish content and show it to the outside world. I remember setting up my first WordPress site, basically just a blog, and I wrote some blog articles. And yeah, so that's like the idea behind these frameworks for a lot of people, right? So they should be really good at content creation, and they really are. They handle so many problems, and especially like I'm really impressed by WordPress. They created this new editor, Gutenberg, that is awesome. I would like to use it in many other projects too. And a big problem in many CMSs is the content creation part, like where you edit text, is not collaborative, and that's for me like an opportunity, right? I would like to bring shared editing, collaboration to every platform, to every user, to every editor. That's my whole idea, and for me, this is a huge opportunity to bring shared editing to Gutenberg. Let's start there, and let's talk a bit about why this is the right solution, like in my opinion.
I feel like everything old is new again, right? Like back in the day, we used to cut and paste from Microsoft Word and other products into our CMS, and then we put a lot of effort into making our editors better. Now we have awesome editors like Gutenberg, but people are still working in other tools like Google Docs because they want to collaborate with their teams. So, we need to make that a core function of the CMS system to address the needs of users.
I agree. And, I think one of the things that's interesting about collaboration in the CMS is that, we know from previous Tag1 Team Talks, by the way, please check out our history of Tag1 Team Talks. We've got a great segment and a great set of videos about YJS. One of the things that we know is that YJS enables things besides just text editing. So one of the things I find really interesting about the prospect of using YJS within the CMS context is potentially having collaboration between site builders and those who are managing layouts. Do we see kind of a future for that as well in the CMS? Because that's something that Google Docs can't do.
Yeah, right. I think that's always a drawback, right? We don't want to copy-paste content from Google Docs or Microsoft Word, because then you need to do all the formatting again, and it's basically a better idea to do that directly in the editor that is provided by the CMS.
The question is, how do we think about the fact that, a lot of CMS users, like content editors, are managing text, but we actually want to enable other things too, like layout building, right? I mean, and this is one of those rare cases that in the CMS context, it's something that you can only do in the CMS. Google Docs can't handle layout management, for example. So do you see other applications for collaborative editing within the context of the CMS besides just text and besides potentially layout management, maybe even stuff like media?
Yeah, right. If you go on the website, you will see that you can create, for example, collaborative drawing applications in YJS too. And you talked about layout building directly in the CMS. Yeah, that's something that you can do in Google Docs, and copy pasting will just really hurt. Like, you don't want to do that, maintain your sources on two places and then copy paste the stuff back to WordPress, because WordPress is really good at content creation and also at layout building. And with the addition of YJS, we make the Gutenberg editor collaborative, which will also enable you to make layout building collaborative. We can make anything collaborative here. For example, in the future, maybe there's a WordPress plugin that allows you to draw pictures or whiteboards or ideas, because, like, for me, drawing is really important. And yeah, you could do that directly in the editor without opening some special software. You can do that together, drawing, drafting, and that's, yeah, I think that would be a huge deal for CMSs.
It'd be really amazing if I could be working on a draft piece of content, a page, and I could lay out the page with you in real time and get your input and feedback before I publish it. It just makes the workflow so much smoother, right? It's how we work. I'm constantly going to call you up and say, hey man, take a look at this. Can you review it before I put this live? What do you think? It just collapses the whole process into one step. Let's work together, create the content. And like you said, there's no other way to do it. It has to be part of the CMS if you're going to be improving the layout. So there's a lot of awesome applications for YJS in a CMS beyond just the shared editing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. I think especially for drafting, if you work together, if you write an article that is not exactly finished and you really collaborate closely with other peers, you want the collaboration aspect. You want to make a short outline, maybe make some notes, and if you want to draw some high resolution pictures, the first thing that I do personally is I may make a draft, like I just draw it by hand, and then I make it professionally. And I would like to do that too in CMSs, because CMSs are, like, content creation is not just about creating a finalized document, it's also about the process of getting to the final document, right? And that's what collaboration is for.
I think that the CMS is one of those places where collaboration is key, but we want to also enable that in real time and also in a very decentralized way. And we've talked about this before on our show, but we've never talked about kind of the most important topic that we have for today, and really a very exciting topic for myself and for the audience, which is we're actually enabling, the Tag1 team is enabling collaborative editing on WordPress and on Gutenberg. I mean, this is an incredible development. It's one of the most amazing new features that I think adds to the user experience of any CMS. Let's talk about WordPress for a bit here, because I think everyone is really excited to hear about how exactly we're enabling collaborative editing in Gutenberg. So what are some of the requirements that we need to enable collaborative editing in Gutenberg? I imagine you can't just install WordPress and it's already available as part of WordPress's default plugins, right?
Yeah, right. So we talked about this, like I mentioned it before, WordPress should just run on any server environment. Like I mentioned, when I was at school and I set up my first WordPress site, I hosted it on the cheapest WordPress site that I could find. It cost like $2 or €2 for you. And yeah, that's what you need to be able to work with. And you can't set up a fully collaborative editing suite directly like on there and expect that everything will be performant and all the requests will just go in really fast. But content creation, like collaboration, like this should still be real time. So we thought about this a lot, and I think the Gutenberg guys who first worked on this project and had the idea brought up a few really good points. So WordPress, including collaboration and Gutenberg, it should just work after you published it to your server. You shouldn't need to set up a second server or register an account at a third-party client. You shouldn't need to be to do that. It should be really performant. It shouldn't, like collaboration, shouldn't block the server process. Like imagine if you would send every keystroke to the server, which is basically how Google Docs works. On small instances, this might break the whole thing because they usually can't handle a lot of requests. So we are concerned about that, and we have a solution for that. And furthermore, like collaboration should enable all the features and maybe more. Like if we talk about shared cursors, so you should be able to collaborate in the same paragraph. Like when two people should be able to work on the same sentence. Maybe one is bug fixing and one is adding new content. This is how I often create content with other people. And I think it should be just seamless. It should just work. There should be no weird conflicts, no conflict resolution. It should just be like Google Docs, right? And yeah, there's something that we also talk about that we want to enable eventually. That's versioning in Gutenberg. Like maybe we can hook it up together, YJS and how they store the documents. Because, well, if you go to the website, yjs.dev, you will see how we support versioning in ProseMirror, which is a different editor. And it's really awesome. You can make a snapshot, a version, and then you make another version, and then you can see the differences between the versions. There's just so much to show. And yeah, the last thing is offline editing. Like content creation often happens on a plane, on a train, on a bad internet connection. And we would like to support that. Like we are open to think about that. I think it would be possible in the future, and YJS is something that, well, just provides that feature.
I think, if you think about what makes WordPress, the most popular CMS on the planet, is it's a really polished product. Anyone can use it, right? That super small install all the way to the enterprise. So if we're going to make it collaborative, it has to kind of fit into that ethos, what makes WordPress great, or it's just not going to be a core part of the platform. You can add any sort of plugin to WordPress, you can make anything happen, and you can certainly, add collaboration, through that. But to make it a core part of the CMS, it needs to meet these key requirements. And to date, that's been really challenging until now.
I would tend to agree. I think that a lot of the expectations that we have today are rooted in a lot of the history of the CMS, rooted in decades of how we've traditionally worked with the CMS. But we really need to reinvent the CMS world somehow. I was talking to a friend of mine just a couple of days ago who said, CMS is kind of boring. There's not really anything exciting going on in the CMS world landscape anymore. And I said, well, no, I actually think there is. It's just that we need to kind of change the way that we think. It's kind of like really reinventing the way that we approach the CMS as a product and as a tool. And if we make collaboration a core aspect, a core piece of functionality available in the CMS in real time, rather than as a plugin, as you said, Michael, I think that's actually going to be a really good way to move the entire market forward. So it's not just about outcompeting some of these other CMSs that might have this sense of real-time collaboration. It's really about changing the vision of what a CMS even is in the first place. It's a collaboration tool in real time. That's something it's never really been before. And I'm excited to see this happen. But we all know that this is not an easy process. Obviously, YJS makes these much easier, but there's a lot of challenges to implementing this. We've talked about a couple of these technologies. By the way, check out our previous Tag1 Team Talks if you want to hear about ProseMirror, which we just mentioned just now, as well as some ideas about WebRTC, a peer-to-peer protocol. But I want to ask you, Kevin, how exactly can we bring shared editing to WordPress and Drupal? I mean, these are old technology stacks. How do we kind of marry the two worlds together?
Yeah. I think there are lots of steps that we need to take. And I think one of the cornerstones here is something that makes it possible to bring shared editing to any solution, and especially to WordPress. It is that YJS itself is network agnostic, which basically means there are no restrictions on a specific protocol, on a specific endpoint that you need to have. And it's also peer-to-peer. And this sounds like too much. Why would you need peer-to-peer in WordPress or other CMSs? Here's how it works. We talked about the performance aspect, and that we don't want to send every request to the WordPress site. And something that we could use is the WebRtc Connector. We talked about this in the last webinar, which allows you to create a mesh network between all the peers that collaborate on the same document, and they will talk to each other directly without communicating through the WordPress site. Well, actually, they talk a bit about it. Just to give a recap, there's the WordPress site still needs to be able to do the signaling part, which basically introduces one peer to the other peers, and then they can create a mesh network. So this is how it works. And this is really easy to implement. It's basically just a publish subscribe plugin that we would need to ship with WordPress. We could implement a WordPress plugin for that. I think that is a really, really nice solution that basically fits in all the things that we mentioned before, like performance and security. Like, we can also talk about data ownership. The data won't be at third-party locations, which is really cool, in my opinion. Like, another thing is you could just switch it out and use a different WordPress plugin if you really want to use WebSockets and persist the data directly on the WordPress site, which is also really cool. It might be much more stable, but harder to maintain. Like, you could even use a third-party location if you choose to. Like, YJS is network agnostic. You can use anything here, but the idea still holds. You can just ship WordPress with YJS as a whole bundle, and you don't need to set up anything else. That's really cool. Yeah, so another thing that we need to do is still make the editor collaborative, which is, well, it's actually still impressive right now. The editor content itself, it's just immutable state that you need to share between, like, it's just a state object that you need to share between all the peers, and YJS already can do that. So implementing shared editing, like the first draft of shared editing, that was really easy. It was really a breeze because WordPress already does it really well, like this state management. So you just need to share the state, and the editor is collaborative. Well, the next steps is like put cursors there and maybe some nice UI features. That's still something that is missing, but yeah, these are the challenges. Like, mainly that is missing is the WordPress plugin for WebRTC or for WebSockets. And the other thing that is missing is shared cursors and the UI aspects here.
And just from just to take things in a little bit of a different direction before we move into some of the other ideas here, I'm kind of curious, what was the kind of minimum viable product? You mentioned, Kevin, that it was really easy to kind of start building a first draft of this implementation. What were the kind of core features in that? And did you have to take anything out and de-scope, let's say, some of the more ambitious features?
Yeah, I mean, something where we had to de-scope as first was like making the whole editor collaborative first, because there were at that time some things missing. For example, the WebRTC connector. It was just recently added to YJS. I had this for the last YJS version, and I needed to bump that. Another thing is here, like you want security, some kind of encryption between the peers. And that's also something that WebRTC can now handle in combination with WordPress. So these are some of the milestones that we needed to take. So now all these challenges have been solved and just need to be integrated. So I think we had a really good place to continue development right now. Like there hasn't been a lot of development in the last 1.5 months, I think. The next step is just implement shared cursors and then provide the WebRTC plugin that also handles a bit of user management. So just tell the user that you have a specific name so that you can share that with the other peers. Like, all the details haven't been figured out yet, but I think all the groundwork has been done.
So let's move a little bit into and just to stretch this particular kind of section out a little bit. I'm kind of curious about the vision for Drupal. It seems very similar. It seems like you would want to have a Drupal plugin for WebRTC, Drupal plugin for WebSockets. That I think already exists actually. But have you all worked with people in Drupal on this? What's the kind of Drupal perspective here? Is it very different from WordPress, or is it still very early days?
Well, YJS as a framework supports a large number of shared editors, and there are working implementations for these other editors. So ProseMirror is a great example. We have a really robust and fully functional shared editing set of capabilities already implemented into that. And so we have, for Drupal, added ProseMirror as the editor within Drupal. And through that have been enabled, Drupal websites to do full collaboration, users, permissions. It does it, I believe, currently, Kevin, in a client-server model because it's for an enterprise client that had certain requirements, so they're not using the peer-to-peer capabilities yet. And I believe that's something that's been added, recently. But yeah, we have this working, fully functionally as part of a Drupal website, but not via Gutenberg, via other editors. And that system also uses CodeMirror in addition to ProseMirror, so that you can do code with really awesome things like, as you're typing, it pops up hints as to what you need to do next. And so, this is taking YJS and applying it to yet another editor in the ecosystem. And as Kevin said earlier, Gutenberg is a really awesome editor. I think that Drupal sites are even adopting it for its capabilities. So that's really the big next step here.
Yeah, I think I want to add you brought out something really interesting, the many editors that already are supported in YJS. And I talked about the WebRTC plugin that needs to be added to WordPress, or that we should definitely at some point add to Drupal too, which is a really small, simple plugin. As soon as we have that, as soon as we establish communication between the peers, we can enable collaboration in any editor that YJS supports. And YJS already supports a lot of editors. There's CodeMirror, Ace, Monaco, ProseMirror, Quill, and I promise you the list will still keep growing in the future. So I think this might be really interested for a lot of people who use different editors, who just prefer different content editors, because they can just include it in their WordPress site or in their Drupal site. It will just work.
Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about some of the other solutions available on the market today. We talked about the fact that collaboration isn't a default feature in WordPress, and that's because of the kind of historical background. But why isn't collaboration a common or default feature in all these CMSs? Is it just because of the kind of history of the CMSs? Would you say there are other factors? I mean, there's a huge list of potential factors about why we haven't been able to enable a more real-time collaborative solution within these CMSs.
I think the main reason for that is doing collaboration is really hard. Think about that. Like the client implements collaboration using JavaScript, and then you would need to implement a different server algorithm on the server side, and the client and the server need to communicate with each other. So let's talk about just text collaboration, and assuming we would use operational transformation, that's a really hard algorithm to implement. And then you need to extend that to rich text editors, which is, well, insanely hard too. Like, trust me. And then you need to implement the same algorithm in the server and the client. So it's like double the work. And a lot of smart people have been working on this problem. And basically what you would end up with most of the time is a server environment that is also written in JavaScript, because it just makes sense. It makes testing easier. It makes, you can reuse the same libraries. You can make sure that the encoding is the same. This encoding of the operations is the same as, what you would use on the server environment. There are just so many problems. And the other thing is WebSockets, historically, I'm not sure, haven't been that well supported in Drupal. And that's a technology that you would need to use in order to support collaboration in a CMS like Drupal or WordPress. I think what you would end up with is, a lot of work if you would like to implement that directly in Drupal.
Absolutely, and I think it's really interesting, by the way, I want to call this out, that you mentioned that a lot of people have decided that, well, if we're already implementing the client side of collaboration in JavaScript, why don't we just do that same thing and use JavaScript on the server side? This is really interesting because it kind of shows, it's very analogous to the approach that many people are taking with headless CMS, where they want to use React with their content. They want to use Gatsby or Vue.js with their structured content. It shows that this kind of idea of universal JavaScript or shared code across client and server is really percolating through the CMS as well. I definitely want to talk more about that. I think it's an incredibly fascinating idea that we're now really expanding the reach of what's possible with server-side JavaScript. So one of the things I wanted to ask about, though, is there's other solutions out there that do actually work for this. One of those that we identified way back in the day on one of our first episodes of Tag1 Team Talks was CK Source. What are some of the issues with CK Source, and why something other than CK Source for this kind of solution?
I mean, yeah, CK Source, it's awesome. Like, the idea here is CK Source, they have their open source CK editor, and CK Editor 5, I tested it, it's really awesome. And it directly communicates with their backend solution, and it allows you to make any content collaborative. So it's basically the same idea as we have. Like, they did it much, much earlier, and they just provide collaborative features for Drupal sites, or for like any site that uses CK editor, which is a really cool thing. Here's something that is missing. They only support their editor, the CK editor, and the other thing is you would need to use their proprietary server environment. I think you can just host it on your own, or you can use their server environment, so they handle all the scaling for you. But here's my question: here's my issue with that. It doesn't ship with WordPress. It doesn't ship with Drupal directly. You need to set it up, and you need to pay for it. And there's also, like, in my opinion, a small question of data ownership. Do you really own the data if it's on a separate server? How do you handle issues when, for example, servers go down and content is lost? I would like to handle everything on one server location. In one database, I would like to host it myself. Here's another thing where it wouldn't work that well is a lot of companies use intranets to host content. Like, just imagine for your company, you have like these really important government secret documents in your intranet, and you put a lot of work into securing the data and keeping it within that intranet. And now you want to make it collaborative and really makes sense for a company to work collaboratively. Now you want to make that collaborative, and you need to host it on a third-party location, or you need to somehow pay people who can host it on your location. And there's a lot of trouble when you need to upgrade stuff. And and with that, with YJS, it will just ship with WordPress. So I think these are a few of the advantages that YJS has over CK editor, but still, or over CK source, but still, it's an amazing project, and it's already working really well. And it's definitely, they were some of the inspiration that I had for my project.
Yeah, no, it's a robust solution. I think that the major difference is for me is what you hit at the end there, Kevin, is the CK source collaboration solution was purpose built specifically for the CK5 editor. And so if you're going to use another editor like Gutenberg, which is core to WordPress, it doesn't work. If you want to make other applications collaborative, that's what I love about YJS is, if you are using, ACE in your application, it doesn't even need to be a CMS. You can plug that in, and that same technology enables you to make any aspect of your application collaborative, right? You can't do layout building with the CK source solution. You can't do collaborative drawing. And so, it really, for what it is, I think they've led the market and have the most robust solution out there for shared editing. It's just specific to that. And this is, a framework that makes everything collaborative beyond.
I think it's very interesting that we call this out as a very important thing. The fact that we want to have a collaborative solution that is open source, not closed source, from end to end. Obviously, one of the great things about YJS is that it's open source, and you can use it in conjunction with all these integrations that are also open source. One of the things that I found really interesting about our discussion just now is that a lot of people do have a lot of concerns about data ownership. I think this is one of the reasons why people want to have more of that peer-to-peer or decentralized kind of approach, because they want ownership of their data on their own local machines and not have to necessarily share it with a server that's somewhere that they have no idea where it is geographically. There's also concerns around GDPR as well, and around some of the regulations that are emerging around compliance with how people handle data, how you have control over your data. And I think it's really interesting to call out the fact that, well, with something like CK Source, even though it's a very robust product, it's been around for a long time, what if it gets into the wrong hands? What happens with all the data that you have to delete when somebody requests to be forgotten? Or things like that. So very, very interesting. I think, for CK editor users, clearly it's a very good solution, and I want to look into it more as well. But it's something that's not necessarily the most compelling for people who are using these other editors, obviously. ProseMirror, if you're using Gutenberg, it's not a viable solution. So now that we talked a lot about some of these ideas around collaborative editing, about the CMS, about how exactly we can use YJS to make this happen. But one thing that I'm sure our audience is curious about is, when is this all going to be possible? What's the plan and the roadmap for making this work in Gutenberg? How soon can I just pull down a WordPress site and instantly have collaborative editing? Is that like a year away, 5 years away, 10 years away, 1,000 years away? What's kind of the roadmap look like, Kevin?
Personally, I really hope that it will be possible this year. So something I want to work on first is to make this solution that we created available under a feature flag that you can just enable it as an experimental feature, because, well, it hasn't been tested that well. Gutenberg itself is still kind of experimental. So let's make incremental steps. But the first step that I want to take, I personally still need to discuss this with the team, is I would like to enable this as a feature that you can use right now, and just make it experimental. and find out how people are using it and if there are any more problems. And then we can continue and make a really nice UI integration here, like with shared cursor locations. And like there are so many problems. For example, when you drag drop a paragraph from one location to the other, maybe you want to highlight that another user is currently dragging that paragraph. Like there are so many things that we could do and that have been done before and that I would like to do again for Gutenberg.
And one question about that right away, one of the things that you mentioned is you want to find out how users are using this and interacting with shared editing with YJS. Is there any instrumentation built into the project where you're able to track certain actions users took, or is this kind of all wrapped up within the existing YJS project?
So the question here was like, do I intercept these requests and maybe send them to my own server farm? Well,
not necessarily to your own server, but one of the things that Gatsby does, for example, is they do telemetry, right? Where yes, they do submit that to a different server, but you can also disable it so that you only have it on your local, I believe. Mm-hmm. Is that kind of data that you're collecting, like how people are clicking on things and interacting with things, kind of like the full story idea, or is it more something that is generally about the operations themselves?
Man, I'm so afraid to implement a feature like that. I think that is something that would be really interesting. When I first started implementing YJS, like at the university, at the I5 Institute in Aachen, at RWTH Aachen, we talked about how we could capture these edits and how many deletions and how many insertions there are. And I think this is, kind of interesting to get. And we made an experiment here. So on my first website, I did that, just send telemetry. I'm not doing that anymore because it turns out like the telemetry data often is bigger than the YJS document itself. I don't want to block users. But yeah, actually, I think it would be interesting if you ask the right questions, like if we have specific questions, let's implement that to find out how people are using that.
How many times do I rewrite that sentence?
I mean, I would be kind of embarrassed, to find out how often I restart or edit the same sentence or how long I'm stuck at certain sentences. That would be really interesting.
One cool thing that I can think about for a use case for this is something like Grammarly, right? Like where you get kind of recommendations dynamically in real time, and maybe you could have a little Clippy icon and integrate that with YJS and say, hey, you're really stuck on this sentence. You've been working on this sentence for too long. Here's a sentence that you might want to use instead.
Oh, that would be an amazing feature. Like, just use this sentence and continue, man. I would definitely deinstall Grammarly if Grammarly would do that for me. Because, I always get stuck at sentences. Yeah, I think certainly something that we should talk about more. Like as soon as there's a product ready and as soon as the feature flag is ready, let's send some telemetry maybe to the own instance, but only if it is enabled. Definitely interesting. I also would like to find out more about how people are editing using shared editing. If they are really working together a lot, actually something that I found out is that it's like YJS is all about conflict resolution, but I can find out if I have the document how many conflicts there are in the document, and honestly, it's very rare that there are conflicts because usually the client communicates so fast with the clients. So usually there are no conflicts, but it's all for these certain 0.1% where you have a conflict, and then YJS is really useful.
There's a great startup business opportunity in here. I'm writing my emailer document, I get stuck rewriting, I could push a button and all of a sudden a professional editor pops in and starts collaborating in my doc with me. And it's like, no, here's what you need to do. and I get that email out 10 times faster.
Oh, that would be awesome. Actually,
instant collaboration collaboration.
Just a proofreader that is in the background, like Grammarly, but a proofreader is sitting in the background, is looking at your document, and every time you make a mistake, he will go there and just fix it.
You know, it would get rid of all of the need for spell check and grammar check in all word processors, because you could just hire somebody to do that for you, right? I mean, and you would get rid of all of the automation problems with that too, where it's like, no, that's an actual last name. I'm not trying to refer to some country. Yeah, this is very great. I guess we'll have to take this offline and start talking to investors in Silicon Valley here. I think this is really funny because one of the things that I find really interesting about this idea is that once you actually get to the point where you've got different functions in the same document, so you're talking not just about editing, but also proofreading, right? This opens the door to a whole workflow where you've got many different people interacting with you on a single project that could be, across a variety of media, and they all have different roles. And this increases the kind of scope and the surface area that the CMS can really occupy in the kind of scope of what we're working on. So, I find this really, really incredible, and will be interesting to hear more about where this goes. Obviously, it's not going to necessarily help me write emails faster, because my problem with writing emails is not that I make mistakes, it's more that I just don't know what to say. So we'll have to see whether, I think actually doing the thinking process, that's still a ways away for YJS, I think.
I think the workflow is a really awesome idea. We're working on a site right now for a company, and it operates in a ton of countries, and each country is available in one or more languages, and they have this really insane workflow where distributors basically own these countries and control the content that's on there. You made me think about how they could work collaboratively. It's not just the content creation, but it's the whole collaborative process to then translate these documents into all these different languages, the nuances that are involved, the review process, the back and forth. To hear them talk about it, it's a huge pain in the ass. It's crazy complex. And this is something that would make it, I think, a lot easier.
And from the standpoint of a name for this kind of idea and how we can enable this, we can call it like content concierge or something. Free idea. If you decide to use that name, I expect a $5 million check in my mailbox at the end of the week. Thank you. So with that in mind, I think we've talked about some amazing workflows this enables. Obviously, the use cases are phenomenal. The range of things that you can do that are possible here are nothing short of revolutionary. I'm sure that the Gutenberg team agrees. What's their reaction been like? What have they been saying about this whole kind of initiative to build collaborative editing into WordPress and Gutenberg? The last question I wanted to ask was, what's the reaction been like from the Gutenberg team? I'm sure that they've been excited about this. I'm sure they don't see this as a normal WordPress feature. It's clearly something that has a lot of staying power. What's the reaction been like?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how everyone thinks, but the feedback that I've gotten quite a lot is when they first see YJS with peer-to-peer and offline, and just, okay, it makes your editor just collaborative and it just works. And their question is, man, that seems really complicated. How is that even possible? I created this website, yjs.dev, and it's fully available offline, and there's versioning support, and it works peer-to-peer using WebRTC. It just seems like magic and kind of too good to be true, right? Completely get that. Just know that I've been working on this this project for 6 years, and just to get here to a stable release and to make all these features possible and performant, and I've gotten a lot of feedback, and I've addressed a lot of the problems with shared editing, especially with CRDTs. And yeah, I can imagine that the feedback from a lot of people is, man, this can't be true, right? WebRTC in WordPress, that seems to be kind of futuristic. Can we really use that right now? And yeah, I think we can. I think we can implement that as a feature that will just work for most people. And yeah, I'm really looking forward for actual users to use this feature and like be amazed how fast this is.
Michael, how about from your perspective? You've got a very different kind of standpoint on this. Obviously, the technology itself is very impressive. It's kind of magical. What do you see as the reaction being from the WordPress ecosystem, from the WordPress market? How has the reaction been from the stakeholders on the Gutenberg side?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, this is a huge priority for the WordPress community. It's something that Mohammed has talked about at conferences. I think it's very much a feature that people want, but until now, a lot of the challenges that we talked about have really made it, far out of the reach of possibility, or at least, a year, 2, 3 years down the roadmap. I think what's really exciting about this is that we've proven that we can radically accelerate that, with a little bit of funding and effort. We can get this over the finish line in months as opposed to years. And so I think it represents a tremendous acceleration. WordPress is dominant because of their ability to add things like Gutenberg. So I'm really hopeful that we can accelerate the pace and with which this can happen. I'm not like crazy involved in the issue queues, but from what I've seen, the conversations on GitHub, it seems like people have been really excited about the early releases that Kevin's put out there, the prototypes. There's a working demo of YJS with Gutenberg, and the progress that he's been able to make in such a short period of time, in addressing, feature requests like peer-to-peer and not having to install their technologies. I'm hopeful that we'll continue to build on that traction and win more and more people over. So I think it's been really positive, and that folks are really excited about it and want to see more.
Wonderful. Well, we're just about out of time, and this has been a really exciting conversation, and I think we can go on for many hours, and we'll have to have a brainstorm session about our upcoming venture. But before we hop off here, Kevin, how can people get involved? I heard Michael mention that there's a demo available. There's some conversation happening on GitHub. Are there places that people should go if they want to keep track of the project and if they want to try it out themselves, report bugs, add feature requests, make your life harder?
Please do. Please make my life hard. I would love to hear your feedback about this feature. You can try it out right now. Just go to the PR request that I opened against Gutenberg, and there I will continuously push updates like what is relevant updates to this project. And there's also a bit of documentation on how you can get this running. You can actually get this running in your WordPress site. You just need to install this directly. But yeah, just try it out, give me feedback, things that might not work for you if it is not fast enough for you. Like, please get involved, just follow this ticket.
Wonderful. And Michael, just from your perspective, from the Tag1 kind of side of things, people who are really interested in learning about their own ways that they can build in collaborative editing into their own websites and their own CMSs, how can they get in touch with Tag1 to learn from our insights here?
Yeah, check out tag1.com/tag-team-talks. We've done, I think this is like the 6th or 7th talk we've done on YJS. There's a lot of information that we're trying to put out there to help people get up and running with it. You can also email us, yjs@tag1consulting.com. If you have any questions, you can get free open source support via the community. If you're looking for some consulting services, paid support, please contact us. We'd love to help you get this up and running in your application.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both so much, and thank you to our audience today. This was yet another Tag1 Team Talks episode, this time about how to enable YJS on Gutenberg and other CMSs. Thank you so much for your time today, Kevin, and also your time, Michael. I think our audience really enjoys hearing about this topic. And of course, as always, one of the things that I want to mention is that if you like this talk will be up and available on the Tag1 website at tag1.com/tagteamtalks. All the links that we mentioned today are available with the link to the talk. We're going to share the GitHub URL. Obviously, we'll share a lot of information about YJS. If you did enjoy this particular episode, if you like this topic, please remember to upvote, subscribe, follow us on Twitter. Remember to share it with your friends and family. And if you have any suggestions for future topics, if you want to hear about something in particular, if you want us to talk more about how YJS works in terms of other aspects of its amazing ecosystem, we love your suggestions. Please write to us at tag1consulting.com. Once again, I want to thank Kevin and Michael for joining me on this journey through YJS shared editing today. And until next time.